سلام خیلی خوش اومدیم به قسمت 15 پادکست تاکسیو. من نیلوفر هستم، میزبان شما. این سری روبروی من آرمان نشسته به خاطر اینکه یه پادکستمون یه اپیزود خیلی متفاوتیه. ما بچهای گروه پادکست پرژن پادکست رو داریم اینجا پیشمون که میخوایم یکم با هم گپ بزنیم.
منم نگفتی سلام کنم، ولی سلام به همگی. ما میذاریم مهمونامون خودشون یکم معرفی کنن خودشونو. اگه دوست دارید بچه‌ها
سلام. ولی شما هم نمونه ما هستیم و اینکه این پادکست دو جوره، نه؟
آره، ما مهمون همدیگه ایم امروز.
So for anyone who's listening to our podcast, this is going to be kind of a split episode where we're going to go back and forth between Persian and English. So hopefully you can keep up. Natalie.
I just feel like the biggest hoax because I mean our listeners have to try to keep up. I feel like most of our listeners, their Farsi is better than mine is. I'm sitting here just trying to keep up. I was talking to my grandma today in Farsi, and like my broken Farsi and like the 5 sentences that I can say without sounding completely like non-functioning. And my friends were listening to me and they were like, how do you even, like, how are you Persian Girl Podcast? Like, who are you?
آره، فکر کنم که کسایی که این برنامه رو گوش میکنن مثل like either هیچ فارسی حرف نمیزنن or like فارسی اونا از من خیلی بهتره. حالا like اونا میفهمن چقدر منم هوکسم. همه دنیا امروز میفهمن وقتی که اینه.
Yeah, I mean, just think about it that way. There are a lot of people in the world where kind of like, you know, they speak 4 or 5 different languages, and there are other people that, you know, barely speak one. So I think it's kind of like my English is not perfect and my Farsi is not perfect. So I'm right in the middle. So it's
my favorite part
weird.
of the podcast is like every time Nilu says a really complicated sounding word, I'm like, oh my god, I don't know what that was, but then thank god you say something and then I'm like, okay, Arman also doesn't know it. Like I still have
Yeah, no, she has to like explain what she's talking about most of the time. Like it's challenging.
Even in our text messages, I always explain what I'm talking about.
Yeah, she says something, especially, you know, like 6 months ago. She would say like a slang word or she would explain something. I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Like that was pure Farsi that's out of my dictionary.
Yeah.
But I'll go ahead and kind of like introduce myself. Well, you guys probably heard it. My first name is Arman, and then I have my co-host here, Niloufar. Say what's up.
Hi. Yeah. So okay, my name is Niloufar. So I go by Nilu because my name is kind of hard, for non-Persian speakers. So I moved here like 3 years ago. So yeah, that's it.
Perfect. Well, she said that, so I'm just going to kind of piggyback on that. I basically grew up here. I've lived everywhere from Texas, LA, pretty much everywhere in LA, now Orange County. We started the podcast, we started Talksio just because we wanted to kind of have something to do. And we both are a fan of podcasts in general. So it was kind of like a mutual thing for us, and, you know, biggest thing in common. And we just talk for hours without even having the podcast on. So it was kind of a cool thing to do too. There's that awkward silence.
No, I guess we never know who's going to speak first.
I've been called out not only by my friends but by listeners who like leave us reviews on the podcast Apple app about how I constantly interrupt Millie. So as time goes on, like as the podcast goes on, I just get more and more nervous of like who's going to call me out next. So I'm like working really hard on not interrupting her, but then sometimes she waits for me to talk. And then I'm just like, should I go first? Am I gonna interrupt her again?
See, we're even taroofing in podcasting. Like,
I was about to say that too, but I feel like that's how you guys talk, so I don't think you should change that. That's just your character.
yeah, that's our dynamic.
Nothing bad though, but I'm just saying.
So I'll start talking, so Natalie interrupts me to introduce herself. 'Cause that's-
Okay.
Perfect. Yeah.
So I'm Millie. Okay.
Wow.
My name is Millie. I was born in America. My family is from Iran, of course, naturally. We started the podcast almost 2 years ago, about a year and a half ago. And I think where we differ is that, like, it's Persian Girl Podcast, but the theme of it is really being a bit removed from that, and this experience as a first generation American, or just first generation anything, but with a Persian background and with all of that same cultural influence and stuff like that. So
I'm Natalie. I'm the other half of Persian Girl Podcast. I was born and raised in New York, in Great Neck. For anyone who knows what Great Neck is, it's a very densely populated Persian community. And I grew up with like a dual kind of identity of being Persian and Israeli, and a lot of people growing up not understanding how someone can be both, because the two countries have such a intense history. So I do understand Farsi like almost completely, but I don't speak as well as Millie does. I think she grew up speaking more Farsi at home than I did. I grew up speaking either English or Hebrew. So those were like my main languages. But as I got older, I had more of an appreciation for Farsi and how poetic it is. And I kind of wanted to expand and try to learn more. Millie teaches me a lot, honestly. She teaches me a lot of Farsi slang. I think the LA Persians use more Farsi slang than the Americans. I mean, the New Yorkers. I think New York Persians like are more Americanized.
Yeah. Like LA County or LA in general have a different Farsi speaking community. They have their own terms and they have their own culture. That's, it's kind of cool. But Orange County too. Orange County has its own rich and OC and Newport Beach live Persians. It's kind of interesting. But I was gonna say something about Persian language and Farsi being so poetic and everything. I love you guys' Instagram page. As far as like the Persian, the Farsi ads and everything.
Oh, that's all Millie.
Yeah. Well, I'm an advertising.
I'm really sentimental about pre-revolution Iran. I like think about it all the time, how much I wish I could have been there. And there's just like the aesthetics was like, they were so strong, the culture. I'm just obsessed with that.
Yeah, no, I love it. I'm an advertising major myself. But I study those. I watch like old Persian ads on YouTube sometimes, and I just, I think it's great. I think it's pure art, basically.
No, same here. Yeah, it's like they weren't even trying to be that. I mean, that's like a whole episode of itself, just talking.
Yeah, sure.
But I guess we can introduce today's topic now, which was, because we're all Persian, we grew up in different places, or, all of us kind of have a different timeline, or like also with Natalie, East Coast, and me, West Coast, and you guys immigrating to America at different times. I thought that both our listeners and maybe your listeners would be interested in a bit more about what the life was like and is like for the youth in Iran right now.
I think there's a lot that people basically outside of Iran don't see. Like even myself, I was born over there, but there's a lot that I didn't even know what was going on with the teenagers and the young adult, young, what do you call it? Not nightlife, but basically like a more fun things that kids do in Iran that people don't see it when they're outside. They just think it's very strict and full of laws and rules that, you know, people are always depressed and everything. But I'm gonna leave that to Niloufar to kind of discuss because she has more experience than me.
So yeah, so um I think that basically, so the biggest like differences, if I'm gonna say, between Iran and the way that the young generation live is that if you are a girl, so it's so hard to live in Iran. So as a girl who grew up in Iran, I always have a fear of hijab. So whenever I want to go, so I have to be careful. So I have my rusari on, I have my manto, like, you know, it's so hard for me. And especially for boys, about sarbazi. So it's
Wait,
hard for
sorry,
them.
1 second. Is this sound a bit crackling or is it just me? Here.
I feel like maybe it's just your connection. Am I also crackling?
No. Okay.
Yeah,
It's fine.
I think it might just be just you.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Good. Like,
Yeah, I hear you fine. Can we
okay.
give like a definition of like the different types of headdresses and whatnot to like explain to people who don't know?
About what?
Like the difference between a hijab and
Oh, okay.
yeah.
So
Tell them what Rossetti is and
Yeah.
what's the difference between that and the niqab that, you know, more people see as like a more Muslim thing. So
okay,
the
like the
differences,
Arab people were.
the Arab culture, yeah.
Okay, so the rusari is like a piece of
Cloth.
Cloth.
maybe, yeah. So that we put on our hair. So just we cover our hair with it. And the way we do is way different that the the government wants. So that's why sometimes they arrest us, and I have experience on that. So they arrest me and they call my parents so they can brought me a just long mantle so that I can just leave there.
So basically, from what I've seen when I was little, what she's basically explaining is pretty straightforward. Like, you know, you go out, you have your hair covered, and if it's not covered to the point that they want it to be covered up, they can basically arrest you, you know, put you in detention centers and do all kinds of stuff, paperwork and everything, and then have your parents or whoever your friends or whatever bring you more coverage, basically to cover up your ankles, cover up your hair. But, you know, at the same time, there's also like Iranian fashion that, you know, it still obeys the laws, and, you know, there's still loopholes that people do, but at the same time, that's still happening, the whole arresting part of it.
well حالا من میپرسم به فارسی که نیو بیشتر explain بهتر بکنه برای I mean it was great so far. I feel like you can bring your best. But موضوعی که میخواستم بپرسم فکر میکنم as well like خیلیا که گوش میکنن همین فکر دارن که آره زندگی اونجا سخته ولی زندگی که آدما که خیلی پول دارن یه زندگی خیلی different هست تو با اونا که انقدر پول ندارن. فکر میکنم اونا که خیلی پول دارن فقط تو خونهشون هستن که خیلی بزرگن اونجا like مهمونی میگیرن بعدش فکر میکنم که میرن توی رستوران که I don't know. It seems like basically what I'm saying though, anyone who's wealthy there is really they're like basically above the law, and they're just kind of going from one high-end area to another. So maybe like Engad but police like they're not. I'm just gonna
آره دقیقاً. نه دقیقاً. So آره اونا واقعا میتونن که they can buy anything with money. به خاطر همینه که پول دارا هیچ وقت مثلا تو این ترابل هایی که مثلا ما شاید بیفتیم نمیافتن. به خاطر اینکه واقعا با پول همه کار میتونن بکنن و خب حتی برای اون تفریح هایی که شاید آدمای معمولی مثلا بخوان توی کشور انجام بدن، اونا چون پول دارن بچه‌هاشون رو میفرستن حالا یا کشوری که تو همون میدلیست هست یا حالا کشور اروپا یا جاهای دیگه اون تفریح هاشون رو داشته باشن. به هر حال اون آدمایی که جوونن انرژی دارن دیگه، بالاخره یه جایی باید اون انرژی رو تخلیه کنن. میدونی چی میگم؟ مثلا تو ایران که کلاب نیست یا مثلا بار نیستش که آدما مثلا برن اونجا با موزیک انرژیشون رو تخلیه بکنن. تنها جایی که هست خیابون و اون مثلا ماشین بازیه که هستش تو ایران. مثلا میرن تو خیابون با ماشین، مثلا حالا یا مسابقه میذارن یا حالا مثلا چه میدونم شماره به هم دیگه میدن یا همه این چیزا. اون آدمایی که پول دارن خب بچه‌هاشون رو میفرستن خارج یا همون اروپا یا هر جای دیگه، بعد اونا اونجا انرژیشون رو تخلیه میکنن. واسه همین تو دردسرایی که حالا ما که حالا مثلا میگیم میدل کلاس هستیم ما نمیافتیم، یعنی اونا نمیافتن تو این مشکلایی که ما میافتیم. واسه همین این واقعا درسته. و اصلا میگن که کلا میگن مثلا تفریح‌های آدمایی که پول دارن با تفریح‌های ماهایی که میدل کلاس هستیم کلا خیلی فرق داره.
So not to like I don't know go against what you were saying, Arman, but you're saying oh it's actually not that bad. Like آره انقدر بد نیست. میدونم که یه جای خیلی beautiful هست این چیزا، ولی اون how do you say law؟
قانون؟
اون قانونا هنوز تو پلیس هستن. So اگه like میخوای بریم بیرون یه کمی موات از هیجاب افتاد بیرون like اون مشکله واسه که هر وقتی که میری بیرون بعد این anxiety داری. ولی میدونم آدم کم کم عادت میکنه، ولی خیلی
آره
خیلی ترسناکه واسه من.
آره
Millie,
واقعا
first
مرسی
of all,
کوچیکی. بگو.
sorry. No, I was gonna say, first of all, I'm surprised Millie doesn't know the word for anxiety in Farsi.
I don't even know what it is.
But also my uncle, like my mom's side of the family, her parents got married very young in Iran. They were 13 and 17, and they moved to Israel. But my mom's oldest brother, her and her siblings were all born in Israel, but her oldest brother, when he was in his 20s, he did a trip all over Europe, and at the end of his trip he went to Iran, but this was pre-revolution, and he said Iran was more fun than any place in Europe he went to. Like pre-revolution, Iran was insane. Like the parties were crazy, the clothing was crazy, like they had all the new styles, and like Millie was saying, she's so nostalgic for like the pre-revolution Iran that she can never visit. And I really am too. Like I always say, I wish I can visit that Iran, not the Iran that's here now.
Yeah, I mean,
well, it's not like that. I still think I see there's like a lot of new developments. I'm just not happy with like the politics of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if we kind of take politics out of the whole thing, and you were talking about like having the anxiety of, every time you want to step out, you got to cover up and you can't wear whatever you want. The point that I was trying to make was, with all those laws and I'm not going to say if they're good laws or whatever, with all those like policies and rules being in place, people are still having fun. People are still, partying. People are still, low-key drinking. People are still, living their lives, but you can't compare that to Europe or here, or getting arrested because you're not wearing enough coverage or whatever you guys were saying, just kind of piggybacking on that. But I just remember my dad was telling me about how he used to like go out and clubbing and do all kinds of like crazy stuff before the whole revolution. And every time he tells me that story, I'm like, dude, I wish I was there, like during 1970s or like 1960, late 1960s. I was like, that's the era that I want to be in Iran, basically.
Honestly, though, when you restrict people, like people always say, like drinking was more fun in high school when you weren't supposed to be doing it. And I feel like in Iran, it's almost like that always. Like because things are restricted, it's like more exciting and more fun that you get to do it, and like it doesn't get old, like the way partying gets old at a younger age in America. I feel like in Iran, like they keep going because it's like so exciting that like they're doing something illegal. but I also heard the techno scene in Iran is insane. That's something I'd want. That's a reason I'd want to go visit Iran for like their like
Yeah.
underground secret parties. That
Yeah,
sounds
I mean,
like a cool thing to experience in history.
you got to talk to my brother then. He knows every single underground club that's out there in Iran.
So
No
are you
way.
guys
Oh.
allowed to tell us about like how, I don't know, I don't want you to get in trouble, but I'm just like, on one hand, like 5 minutes ago you were like, yeah, there is no like any of that partying, you have to travel, but like there is an underground thing. Can we talk about this or no? Like, am I gonna get a fatwa? Like,
Well,
or
I
all
was
of
too
it?
young. I mean, I was too young when I left the country. I was 11, 12 when I
No, like
left.
not that if you experienced it, but like how is that operating? Like where is this happening? Not
Yeah, yeah.
specifics, but like
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. So what I've seen personally from friends and basically social media and everything, people do it. There's still a lot of like you guys said, like the techno clubs and underground places that people go. There's like a restaurant in Iran that's pretty famous. That's like a front business basically. So you go in, it's like a kebab shop basically. You go in, order your food, and there's like a secret door that one of my friends was telling me about. You open that up and you go in the back, and there's like a whole like EDM style like basement
That's
thing.
cool.
You know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, shit's crazy over there too, just like it is here for techno and everything.
I think I would want to go just to experience what it's like. Like, to me, it's so crazy that we all live on the same planet, but it's as if we're living in different centuries. And like, I kind of want to visit Iran now just to be able to experience what that's like, to like what it's like to feel that like oppression, and like to see how people react to it and still manage to like create happiness in their own lives. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Niloufar, I think you've been to a couple of, I mean, people your age have been to, different clubs and everything. But I mean, if you want to kind of touch that, tell us about it a little
اوکی.
bit.
آره من که خودم نبودم ولی میتونم هر وقت رفتین ایران بهتون رستورانایی رو بگم که الکل میدن، یعنی you can drink there. نه خیلی تابلو که همه ببینن ولی خودشون میدونن که دارن میفروشن. خب شما هم که داری میگیری پی میکنی بعدش، ولی اونجوری خیلی نیست مثل قبلا که مثلا او الکل چی هست، مثلا نه الان میگیرنمون. من خودم یادمه 2 سال پیش برای اولین بار که برگشتم ایران ما رفتیم یه دونه رستوران، بعد خیلی قشنگ، یعنی واقعا خیلی قشنگ اومدن شراب باز کردن برامون. بعد من همینجوری مونده بودم، گفتم من 1 سال نبودم مثلا چی شده، یعنی چی شراب میدونن؟ بعد هم گفتن آره بخور اوکیه فلان. من همینجوری مونده بودم ولی خواستم بگم خیلی داره بهتر میشه.
Perfect.
Yeah, we just lost some precious audio from the episode because we forgot to hit record. This is what happens when you get 4 Persians on a podcast.
How many Persians does it take to record a podcast correctly?
Yeah. Or like the
Or is not enough, I guess.
Of course.
So فکر میکنم من داشتم از نیلو میپرسیدم اگر وقتی که تو ایران زندگی میکرد did you have to به پدر مادرتون رو بهشون دروغ بگی اگه میخواستی بری بیرون با let's say با پسرها این چیز. I don't know.
آره it really depends on your parents. So in my case پدر مادر من جوری نبودن که خیلی strict باشن، ولی خب به خاطر این بود که بابام هی می اومد آمریکا میرفت زمان که من خیلی بچه بودم. بعد یه جوری شده بود که خیلی open mind شده بود. من میگفت دختر مثلا باید ایندیپندنت باشه و مثلا کاراشو خودش انجام بده و اینا، ولی خب مامانم strict بود واقعا و مثلا به میگفت باید حتما یه ساعتی خونه باشی، این ساعت حتما باید بیاد. بعد اگه یکم دیر میشد من باید توضیح میدادم، مثلا میگفتم آره مثلا ترافیک بود این بود نشد زود برسم، نشد حتما این ساعت بیام خونه. ولی اگه با الان بخوام مقایسه کنم، کازن من که الان تو ایرانه he's like 17 بعد شروع کرد دیت کردن when he was 14. آره 14 یا 15. بعد اون ولی الان مثلا اینجوری نیست، خیلی راحت با دخترها میره بیرون. بعد مثلا مام باباشم میدونن، بعد تازه مثلا کمکش هم میکنن، مثلا از نظر حالا چیزای رابطه یا مثلا سکشوال تینگا همه چیزا رو مثلا بهش میگن، چون این چیزا رو تو مدرسه یاد نمیدن به ما، یعنی نمیگن هیچ کدوم. واسه همین یکی که مثلا واقعا بزرگ میشه هیچ اطلاعاتی نداره، من اینکه خودش بره سرچ کنه تو اینترنت چیزا رو یاد بگیره. بعد حالا این چیزا حتی زمان منم نبود، یعنی مثلا هیچ وقت مامان بابای من نشستن مثلا بشینن راجع به این چیزا با من حرف بزنن، مثلا میگن اوکی این کارو باید بکنی و اینا. ولی خب میگم با این نیو جنریشن خیلی فرق میکنن، باشون حرف میزنم میگم به نظر من چیز خوبیه، به خاطر اینکه مثلا همین بود حالا زمانه قبل خیلی حالا مریضیایی، یه مریضی مثل HIV و این چیزا خیلی تو ایران زیاد شده بود، چون واقعا نمیدونستن، هیچکی نبود بهشون بگه. بعد خب چون خیلی هم قانون و این چیزا بود، همه مثلا همینجوری میرفتن حالا یه سری کارا میکردن، حالا بعدش دیگه یه سری مریضی و این چیزا میومد.
I'm just curious to know, like, this guy is 17 or he started at 14. How is he dating? Who are these 14-year-old girls he's going on dates with? Like, who are their parents?
منم هر وقت ازش میپرسم he's like نمیدونم دیگه، میاد دیگه بیرون. منم میگم اوکی good luck، خوش بگذره بهتون.
دروغای خیلی خوب میگن این دختر. Or maybe their parents are really open-minded now.
Maybe.
Because the Persians here are not even that open-minded. I think what we also wanted to ask, we're going on a different trajectory, but Arman had asked this, but اصلا کجا آدم میت میکنین اونجا وقتی که like میرفتین بیرون؟
آره the best part فکر کنم همینه که ما تو خیابون همدیگر رو میت میکنیم. چیزی که اینجا نیست. واقعا اولین سوالی که من اومدم اینجا از کازنم پرسیدم این بود که شما کجا همدیگر رو میت میکنین، چون خب اون نه که هیچ بک‌گراندی نداشته باشه، ولی خب نمیدونست دیگه، به خاطر اینکه اون کلا یه بار که زمان های اسکولش اومده بود ایران، که خب اون موقع مثلا زمانی بود که حتی دختر پسر نمیتونستن تو خیابون با هم راه برن، تا زمان کمیته و اینا. بعد اون خب میگفتش که خب اوکی اینجا دیتینگ اپ هست، مثلا خب تو کالج خیلی هم دیگر رو میت میکنن، تو های اسکول و این چیزا. بعد من اینجوری بودم که نه، خیابون، ماشین بازی. بعد اون اصلا هیچ آیدیایی نداشت که من دارم راجع به چی حرف میزنم. تو ایران خیلی مثلا جای حالا به نظر نرمال و خیلی مثلا حالا خیلی جای فان و باحالیه، چون واقعا فان و باحال، خودم خیلی اکسپریانسشو دارم. اینه که تو خیابون، تو ماشین وقتی مثلا همینجوری داری درایو میکنی یا کالا یکی میاد بغلت میگه او مثلا can I have your number، بعد تو از اول میگی نه، بعد شماره‌شو حالا یا تو شماره‌تو میدی، بعد دیگه تکست میدین به هم دیگه، بعد میرین دیت میکنین. بعد یا تو پارتی ها خیلی الان مد شده که تو پارتی همدیگه رو میت میکنن، یا مثلا یکی به هم معرفی میکنن، مثلا میگن آره فلانی سینگله، مثلا بیا برو با این دوست شو، یا مثلا حالا با هم برین دیت ببینین چی میشه با اینا. ولی خب میگم اون جای میجر رو اصلا اون فان، حتی بگیم واقعا اون فان الان جوانای ایرانی اینه که ویکند بشه، مثلا ویکند تو ایران it's like Thursday and Friday، ویکند بشه برن تو خیابون، به قول خودمون برن ماشین بازی، برن همینجوری فان داشته باشن.
Should we explain in English what machin bazi is for all the Americans who've never heard of such a thing or experienced it? Because
yeah, go ahead.
Millie, do you want to go or?
No, you can. Do you want to explain?
So basically, what I took from it is like you can be driving at any time, and then like suddenly you're at a red light, and some guy stops next to you, and he'll just like roll down his window, and be like, "Hey, you're cute. Take my number, hit me up." It's like
Not even at the red light, just there's certain street that you can drive in, and they are
there's like no streets where people will like go down meet people.
Exactly.
That's
Yeah.
kind of
That was the
weird.
impression I had because I think I've seen videos on Instagram of like people getting dressed up and they go with their cars and play music and the windows down. So I think, yeah, but I'm also under the impression that اگه تنها هستی, like this doesn't happen. It's like it happens in groups, right? Or
Right, yeah.
because
It's
I think
normal to
that's
happen in group because وقتی تنهایی یکم ویرده، مثلا حالا یکی بیاد بغل دستت بخوای باهاش حرف بزنی، ولی خب وقتی با دوستات باشی تو گروپ باشی اکثرا فان میشه، بعد یکم جوک میکنین با هم دیگه، خب خوش میگذره.
Yeah, because we were thinking about how weird that would be in America, like someone just coming up to your car. But it's like a different approach. I think it's like there's these groups of young kids and like they're part of the same scene. So that's my impression of it and like why it's not entirely creepy. Like it's actually fun or something. But
It's really fun.
Yeah, let's talk about, depending on what kind of car you drive, the better phone numbers you get, the more real phone numbers you get too. That's the reality.
Yeah. Are people like really judgmental? Like, do you need to like pose biddy, like, oh, you have this car, like maybe if your car isn't nice enough you won't even go to that street? Like what's the
Yeah, that's totally true. ماشینت اگه خیلی خوب باشه you get better phone number.
Yeah. I mean, there's certain areas that
واقعا.
there's nicer cars in certain zip codes, and just like how it is here too, there's better houses and everything. So you get quality numbers and quality girls.
I learned my lesson though at a young age that you don't give a fake number, because I've had guys, they're like, oh, I'm gonna call you right now, and then they call and it's not real and my phone's not ringing and I'm like, okay, fuck.
Yeah, no, I used to do that in high school where I would just read back the same number and they would like not correct me. I mean, I would read back that the number they gave me would like a digit, like a different digit in the middle, and they would not correct me, so I knew
That's so
it was
smart.
a bogus number.
I used to not know my own phone number because I had such a bad memory. And I remember one time this guy that I actually thought was really cute asked for my number, and I didn't have my phone on me. And I was like, I don't know my number. And he's like, you're so mean. If you're not into me, just say so. Like, you don't have to lie. I'm like, no, I actually am into you. I just don't know my number. He's like, I don't believe you. I'm like, okay, fine. Give me your number on a piece of paper and I'll text you later when I have my phone. I literally I just had the worst memory. But like, he like straight up thought I was lying. He's like, you're just not into me. I'm like,
so
yeah, I mean, I was gonna say something about the phone numbers in Iran too. They're like good phone numbers. There's like, bache bola shahar phone number, like there's upper class phone numbers, area codes, right, Niloufar? There's like
not with phone numbers.
phone numbers
Cell
that
phone
like
numbers.
area
No.
codes.
No, area code is only for homes, not the cell phones.
wait, cell phones don't have an area code?
the phone number, like the cell phones are, the phone number, the area codes of the phone number, the cell phone numbers are basically the company that you buy it from. They have a certain number for each company that you buy it from.
Wow, so like everyone knows your status like right away just based off your phone number.
That's what I was saying. Like depending on what phone number you have, they know how much money you make, as which company you're going
like,
for.
I have Metro PCS, which is by far one of the shittiest cell phone companies to ever exist. But nobody knows that.
Well, now they do. Now you just
now they do.
I mean, I don't care. Everyone can know. It's fine. But like, that's kind of so fucked up, because imagine if like Metro PCS had its own like area code, like everyone would just know right away that I have Metro PCS. What if I don't want them to know? It's such a like status, like it just gives away your status right away.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say too. Like they know exactly, like if you have a good job, if you can afford a good phone number and from a certain company, they just they judge you right away too. Not in a bad way, obviously, but just being nice.
I bet a lot of Persian girls in America are like, oh, I kind of wish it was like that here, so I wouldn't have to guess how good of a job this guy has.
Right?
It's fine. They probably have a brother who works at a real estate company and can like go on LexisNexis and search the guy on the database.
Oh God.
I actually started working
I'm not speaking personal experience.
I started working at a real estate company, and sometimes my boss will tell me like, oh, look at this guy, look at Like, look at how much he makes a year. I'm like, oh, is he single? Like, I'm like, working at a real estate company is a great way to find a man because I already know what your bank account looks like. I know what apartments you're looking at. I know you're like, I don't know, any type of history, if you've been arrested. Like, we have to see like certain things about you. It's like, it's great. Like, there's no guessing, there's no playing games. I already know everything about you.
Yeah,
it's not
maybe
creepy at all.
this is a big thing why Persians go into real estate because they're like major fuzus and need to
That's
know.
a really good point.
I am very fuzul. No, but I wouldn't really do that.
Wait,
That's fine.
I wanted to ask about, I feel like we got off the topic. I want to grill Nilu more about like her life
Damn.
there.
No, it's really interesting talking to someone who grew up there because my only cousin I had left that grew up in Iran is very religious. So she literally just never did anything. Like she couldn't tell me anything about like secret underground, like cool things like that.
So yeah, I was gonna ask, like, so your parents, weren't, your mom was strict, but your dad was a bit more open-minded, and then you did go out with people, but like مثلا چی میگفتی وقتی که رفتی بیرون؟ like به پدرت چی میگفتی؟
Okay, I told them the truth, but just a part of it. You know, مثلا من با هیچ وقت تنها نمیرفتم دیت. وقتی با دوستم میرفتم میگفتم با دوستم دارم میرم بیرون. ولی دیگه نمیگفتم مثلا اوکی پسرم هست. So I told them the truth, but یه جاهایشو نمیگفتم. بعد ولی خب وقتی من مثلا رسیدم 19 شدم دیگه خب به مامانم میگفتم همه چیزو. یعنی she knew that I have boyfriend and everything. مثلا میریم بیرون، حتی بابام هم میدونست. ولی خب یکم مثلا هی بهم گفت بیشتر مواظب باش، مثلا بیشتر بهم زنگ میزد، مثلا میگفت کجا میری، بعد کی میای. ولی خب خیلی اینجاش جالب بود که دیگه مثلا بهم نمیگفت 10 خونه باش، با اینکه مثلا میدونست با پسر بیرونه، ولی میگفت اوکی مثلا شاید یکم اون مواظبته مثلا. بعد آره یعنی میگم واقعا it really depends on the parents که چه جوری هم. بخاطر اینکه من دوستایی هم دارم که مثلا از اون اولش که مثلا تین بودیم همه چی رو میگفتن به مامان باباشون. یعنی مثلا مامانش همه چیز رو میدونست، باباش هم همه چی رو میدونست. از اون ورم یه سری دوستایی رو داشتم که هنوز که مثلا we are 23 هنوز مثلا مامانش نمیدونه که مثلا این داره دیت میکنه یکی رو. یعنی من هر 2 تا دوست رو دارم. یکم میگم دیگه دیپند.
So یه حرف که خیلی میزنیم تو پادکست ما راجب virginity and how هنوز خیلی اون یه چیز هست اینجا که خیلی فامیلا نمیخوان دخترشون برن like سکس داشته باشن. So اون حرفا هنوز هست تو فامیلا اونجا یا
نه خیلی بهتر شد. دیپنس، یعنی واقعا هنوزم دیپنس که حالا تو چه فامیلی هستی. ولی میگم مثلا من خودم میبینم خب خیلی اوپن مایند ترن راجع به این چیزا. نمیشینن بودم مثلا حرف بزنن بگن مثلا چه میدونم این کارو نکن یا این کارو بکن، ولی مثلا حرفاشون آدم میفهمه که اوکی مثلا اینا اوکی ان. میدونی چی میگم؟ اینا مثلا خیلی استریک نیستن یا مثلا نمیگن این کارو نکن یا این کارو بکن. ولی میگم نسبت به اون چیزی که من تو ایران بودم، حالا من 3 ساله اومدم، ولی نسبت به اون زمانی که من تین بودم تو ایران خیلی بهتر شده. یعنی خیلی انگار همه چی اوکی تر شده. حالا من واقعا نمیدونم چه اتفاقی افتاده، ولی واقعا من مثلا هر کی رو میبینم اصلا خیلی اوپن مایند ترن. اصلا انگار واقعا یه چیزی عوض شده.
I mean اونجوری هست اینجا also like in what I'm forgetting. I think it's getting late and my brain is just giving out. But همینطور, that's what I meant to say. اینجا هم همینطور. Like this generation Z is like very open. the kids of it, I mean. But I mean, obviously different circumstances, but one thing that we were saying that got lost in the audio was how in these, and any time where there were restrictions, we found that there's actually so much more creativity, like in how there's this underground scene in Iran where there's like, they're producing amazing music, I'm assuming, and there's these secret clubs, and there's this like also car culture, and then I like had related it to Picasso in World War II, with the sculptures that came out of that time. But no, and then I was saying that Iran suffered enough; they could use some liberation.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of talked about the creativity too. I mentioned that earlier when we lost the audio, that there's so much pressure that people have to get creative, and that's the beauty of it. Like, there's so much, the music scene, the fashion industry. I'm a graphic designer myself, and I look at, sometimes I kind of learn from graphic designers from inside of Iran, and I get inspirations from them too. It's crazy that sometimes people don't even see that, to be honest.
Yeah, I was also, another thing that we had mentioned earlier, it's annoying that we keep saying this for the listeners, I imagine, but like Natalie was like, oh, I can't believe that a guy would just come up to the car like that, or just like come up to a girl in the street like that. And I was saying, like, it is so funny to imagine, not just because of like it's weird, but like I think the men here don't have as much balls. Like they, you don't want to generalize, but it seems like the only place where they would approach a woman is like if there's alcohol in the.
Yeah.
I said it in Farsi last. I think when I said it in Farsi, it sounded better before, but yeah, it's just like, yeah. And then I think I was saying that maybe the life is better there in this way, even though we were criticizing. But
I mean, it's definitely a cool experience. I would love to like see at one point in my life when I'm still young, because it's just such a different world, and I feel like it would be such a culture shock for me, but in the best way.
So why did you guys come to America?
So for me, it was just studying here and just see what's happened. هیچ فعلا برنامه‌ای ندارم که شب بمونم اینجا، ولی خب هر سری هم که برمیگردم ایران فکر میکنم که انگار مثلا نمیتونم، نه که نتونم بمونم، ولی it's like خیلی نمیتونم خودم adjust کنم با چیزایی که اونجا، با اینکه بزرگ شدم مثلا 20 years اونجا بودم، من بیشتر زندگیم اونجا بودم تا اینکه اینجا باشم، اما انگار مثلا وقتی یه چند سال نباشی یه سری چیزا رو که نمیبینی، بعدش که برمیگردی میبینی اون چیزا رو. مثلا من فکر میکردم که اوکی من مثلا دیگه خیلی I used to hijab and everything، ولی وقتی مثلا برمیگردم میگم این چیه که من باید بپوشم، مثلا چرا الان مثلا تابستون من گرممه، چرا من باید مثلا حجاب بپوشم فلان این حرفا. ولی خب من فعلا برای مثلا درس اومدم حالا.
I have a question that I hope isn't too personal for Niloufar. In regards to like people getting arrested for too much of their hair showing, is it kind of a normal thing to get arrested as a girl in Iran? Like, do your parents not really get mad? Like, I can't imagine getting arrested. Like, Millie's been arrested, but like, but like, I can't, like, most kids my age have not been arrested, but is it kind of a normal thing in Iran? Like, because there's so many girls not following the rules and not covering their hair enough, and like, the police want to make an example out of these girls, so they just come up to them and arrest them?
So no, in my opinion, it's not normal at all, even in Iran. مثلا من خودم یه دفعه این اتفاق برام افتاد، بعد پدر مادرم عصبی شدن، ولی نه از دست من، مثلا
Yeah.
دست من عصبانی نشدن، دست این عصبانی شدن که مثلا چرا باید اینجوری باشه، چرا خب اوکی چرا باید دخترها رو بگیرن.
Yeah, so they didn't blame you.
نه حتی مثلا کسایی هم که دور و بر من هستن اونا هم پدر مادرشون همین فکر رو میکنن، مثلا از دست ماها عصبانی نمیشن که چرا مثلا ماها این مدلیم یا چرا مثلا حالا بالاخره آدم یه دفعه رو سریش میفته یا یه دفعه حواست نیست مثلا اصلا دست ماها عصبانی نمیشن. ولی خب از یه طرف هم انقدر این پروسس سخته که مثلا حالا بیای هی باید به اونا بگی چشم من قول میدم دخترم دیگه این کارو نکنه، چشم حواسم به دخترم هست، بیشتر از این همه عصبانی میشن یا مثلا چرا هی باید بیام به اونا بگم مثلا چشم مثلا نه حواسم به دخترم هست ببخشید اینجوری.
فکر میکنی بیشتر از این تیپا هستن تو ایران که فکر میکنن این مثلا شوخی هست که هی بعد پلیس بیاد واسه یه کمی مود که نشون میده، یا فکر میکنی هنوز خیلی هستن که میگن نه باید اینجوری باشه؟ Like what's the, you know what I mean, what's there more of?
It's hard. من هر دوتاشو دیدم، همونه که مثلا میگن اوکی اینجوری باید باشه it's the best way که مثلا دخترها بخوان حجاب بذارن، از اون ورم دیدم که مثلا خب میگن نه یعنی چی، مثلا عصبانی میشن. ولی in my opinion من فکر میکنم الان بیشتر کسایی هن که میگن نه مثلا چرا باید اینجوری باشه، نه باید اینجوری باشه، هر کسی بالاخره میتونه که انتخاب کنه که حالا هر جور دوست داره لباس بپوشه. من فکر میکنم.
I was going to add something to what Niloufar said earlier too about, you know, she's going back and فکر میکنه که عقب افتاده یه کم و نمیتونه جا بیفته. Iran and especially Tehran has such a fast moving culture that honestly if you're not there for like 6 months, you're out of the loop. You kind of have to catch up and, you know, with the music and what people are doing for fun and everything, you get behind if you're not there for like 6-7 months, right?
Right, even with
exaggerating?
fashion. No, you're right. من برای اولین بار که برگشتم خالم مجبور شد برام مانتو بخره به خاطر اینکه من اصلا خیلی اولد فشن بودم، با اینکه شاید من مثلا 10 ماه نبودم ایران. اصلا یه جوری افتاده بودم عقب که عمم گفت، عمم خالم بهم گفت اوکی بیا من برات مانتو رو سعی خریدم، الان فشن ایران اینه، مثلا تو باید اینجوری بری بیرون. من گفتم اوکی. واسه همین خیلی سخته بخوای کچاپ کنی وقتی بعد از یه تایمی برمیگردی ایران.
That's exactly what I was saying too. So it's hard. I mean, people don't see it too. I mean, it's such a fast moving culture. I love it though. I wish I could go back. I haven't been back in 10 years. It sucks.
No, I really like what you're telling me actually. It's so intriguing. Like خیلی خوشم اومده.
Yeah.
Yeah, did you, we also had lost where you asked us about where you think
oh yeah, that was a question I asked you guys. So I'm kind of curious, I think, I'm curious about what you guys think or what you guys imagine people your age think of their future or think about their future in Iran. Like, how do you imagine them thinking about their future?
So, as I was saying, I think this relates to what we've been talking a lot about throughout the episode. I think that answer depends on what kind of family or financial circumstance this person is in. So, if they're part of this, you know, ultra wealthy family and their parents are, you know, families in manufacturing and they're one of like the main families or something like that in Tehran, maybe I think their lives are set and they don't really think about or maybe care about the future. I don't think those kinds of laws affect their lives directly and they're comfortable. And then I think there's this like middle class, which is they're educated and they are culturally aware, but they know that there are more opportunities for them outside of Iran. So they're going to leave for college or something else, either to Europe or America. That's what I think. And they're probably frustrated with the current state. I don't know if there's any kind of person who has like kind of established themselves as someone opposing the current ruler. But and as for someone who's like in a lower class, I don't want to generalize, but I think either there's someone who has like the same kind of opinion as this middle class person who's educated, who is curious, and they most likely are suffering the most because there's a chance that their parents are very strict, very backwards. But I mean, those kinds of things exist in all, you know, I don't know. I'm giving like a very simplified, generalized answer, but I think it's just like this polarity where either people, they don't care about it changing of a future for Iran, and then there are people who are passionate about it, who protest maybe, and then there are people who do want to change, but they end up just leaving because it's too maybe frustrating or devastating to think about because it seems so impossible.
It's kind of like just look at it this way: people who have the power and the authority to make those kind of changes don't want to, and the people who can't do anything about it, who just kind of have to live by the obey by the rules and live by the rules, they want to change everything, but they can't because they basically have no power. So like you said, the rich or the upper class decide to kind of take the easy route and leave the country, or you know, just live by the rules and take advantage of, basically. That's what happens a lot in Iran too. Okay.
Natalie, what do you think of?
I think she's still processing all the Farsi.
No, my opinion on like how people in Iran see their future didn't necessarily have to do with social status and what class they were in. It just really depended on whether or not they were pro the revolution or whether or not they're waiting for a new revolution, and whether or not they see a new revolution as even a possibility. Because there are a lot of people out there who, even on like in the most random places, even on TikTok, like we started making TikToks for Persian Podcast, and based on the type of TikToks you view and the videos you view, the algorithm shows you different types of videos. So I started getting a lot of videos about being Persian and about just Iran in general and life in Iran and whatnot. And there were so many people writing in the comments like, we want the Shah back, like one day a revolution will happen and the Shah's son will come back. Like, and it's just like, so like out of like every place you would think to see comments like this, like to see it on TikTok on like a random video about Iran, like I just thought it was so interesting how like even in the smallest of places there's like little seeds of hope that people plant. So like it, to me, it didn't necessarily have to do with like social status. I think there's wealthy and poor people who are pro the Shah coming back, and I think there's wealthy and poor people who are pro the current state of Iran and the current government in Iran. So to me, it wasn't about like class. It was just about whether or not you like the government that's in state right now, or if you want someone else to replace it.
Yeah, that's very true. That's a good point too. I was also going to mention it. I think people, especially like the lower, like middle class to lower class in Iran, they're kind of in a situation where they don't want to see. They just want to see something new. Like they might be tired of the current government. They're probably not even thinking about Shah and the whole, you know, the family coming back to Iran. I feel like they're just looking for something new other than you know, the previous or the current situation.
Yeah, I
That's
don't
just
think
my
a lot
personal
of
opinion.
people, yeah, I don't know. I mean, you guys are more, obviously Arman and Nilu, you're more extra, have a better expertise, but I don't think, I mean, obviously the Shah was problematic in his own ways, but I understand that people have the general nostalgia for his time because it's the last thing people can remember of a freedom. But I think like anyone who is passionate politically, they're looking for a different kind of leader as well. I agree. So
Yeah, that's what I was saying too.
I mean, even in America, we claim to be such a progressive, great country. We're even waiting for a different kind of leader. Like, I don't think anyone right now is currently happy with what's happening in our country politically.
Yeah, I don't think anyone in the world is happy with what's going on with the U.S.
No. Majority of the world, I think, thinks we're a joke right now, but we just have to learn to laugh at ourselves and try to ride it through. But people, I think it's interesting that people still want to move here and still come here looking for hope and looking for a future when the US is like in very deep shit at the moment.
I mean, sometimes you have to choose between bad and worst. So
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's the situation.
No, I think we need to still see that the US is like is still salvation for many people because other countries are really much worse. Not in like a way to insult them, it's just because of poor leadership. It's not like a, but anyways, yeah, this is another, this could go on forever. But thank you guys for both letting us come onto your podcast and coming on to ours. Would this be a good time to say khosh oumadin, or is that like not the right word?
That's definitely the right
That's
word.
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Khosh oumadin.
Yeah. Thank you guys for having us and also coming onto our show. This was very different for us, as I don't know if you've ever heard of one of our episodes, but it was very different. But I had a lot of fun. I mean, we both had a lot of fun, me and Niloufar. So thank you guys. I appreciate your invitation. So formal.
No, you guys are the formal. Before we began recording, I was saying that they're like Adam Hisabi, and we're just like me and Natalie with like no formality. But anyways, so
Take it as
that. All right. Bye.
Of course. Yeah, thank you guys. Just gonna do a little plug. If you guys want to listen to all of the podcasting platforms, just search for Talksio. We appreciate you guys.
And yeah, check out Persian Girl Podcast. We're on all platforms as well.
There you go. Thank you guys.
Thank you.